Simultaneously told his team, kind of like a Trumpian thing, I want to see these American grocery stores. I want to see it for myself. I want to go see how the Americans eat, because I hear things about how they have food on demand. Boris Yeltsin was running the Soviet Union, was about to run the Soviet Union, goes into a grocery store in Clear Lake, Houston, at a grocery store called Randall's, and you couldn't believe it. Boris Yeltsin walked aisle by aisle. Again, this is a guy who was raised in communism and a defender of totalitarian communism, where everything was free, but everything was awfully expensive. And he couldn't believe, he even said, quote, "You have 40,000 different options at this store?" Yeltsin said, quote, "He roamed the aisles of Randall's, nodding his head in amazement. Shoppers and employees stopped him to shake his hand and say hello. In 1989, not everyone was carrying a smartphone in their pockets, so selfies were not a thing." He said, quote, "Even the Politburo does not have this choice. Not even Mr. Gorbachev himself eats as well as a poor person in America. The leader of the Soviet Union could not believe that you could get ice cream on demand, that you could get lettuce, onions, whatever you want. He was shocked. He said, this is heaven on earth. He said, is this an exception? Is this a special store that I chose? And the shoppers that he randomly engaged with, no, this is America. In America, we have abundance. In America, we have prosperity. Now remember the context. The Soviet Union embraced Marxist totalitarianism. It was a competition of ideas. Was Western free market capitalism going to be the better way forward? Or was it going to be top-down communistic dictatorship totalitarianism? The fact that stores like these were on every single street corner in America amazed him. By contrast, a Russian store was a lot different. A Russian store was barren. Everything was financed by the government. There were price controls. It was centrally planned, to each according to his ability, to each according to his need. We famously sent Benny Johnson to a grocery store in Cuba. Look at there. That is a Russian Soviet grocery store. Bland, disgusting, old food. Because there are no market principles that were driving it. It was made by some government bureaucrat. Here's your cranberries. Here's your vodka chicken. A Russian store looked as if people were in the third world. You would spend 2 or 3 hours in line each day, and when the food runs out, it is out. Your gray, brown, and yellow food. There are stories that when Russians came to the United States after the Cold War, they'd visit a supermarket and load up on tons of meat because they thought it was just meat day. And the USSR, meat day would usually only be available 1 day a week, and then it would run out, and that is it. There are stories of people buying up all of one product just so that they could watch in astonishment as workers came out and restocked the shelves. The idea of having even more of something in the back was unheard of from people from communist nations. Not just that, the man, the Yeltsin and Gorbachev, the most powerful people on the planet, they could not grasp the abundance. They were in charge of one of the wealthiest, largest countries in the world, the Soviet Union, and they did not eat as well as a pauper in the United States of America. It is easy to take for granted what we have in our grocery stores. It is easy to look at the modern miracle and how free market capitalism works, from an entrepreneur that thinks they can make a better ketchup, to the assembly line that makes sure that you get your Dijon mustard, to the olive oil imported from around the world in Greece. The incredible product of entrepreneurialism. You can get tuna from Japan, olive oil from Italy, you can get feta cheese from Greece, all the while you can get back to your home and complain that you are an oppressed person in this country. You see, at the root of leftism is ingratitude. At the root of leftism is mobilizing resentments. Now, of course, there are a lot of problems in this country. It's hard to afford groceries right now. People are voting more with their stomachs than even with their hearts or their heads. Totally understandable. And Kamala Harris, she wants to take us to the Soviet grocery stores. Continue to play cut 119. Kamala Harris is hearing the concerns of the American people. Her pollsters say you got to do something about this grocery problem, this price problem. So Kamala Harris is going full Soviet. Kamala Harris rejecting the lesson from Boris Yeltsin when he was marveling about the abundance in our grocery stores. She wants to implement totalitarian, communist price controls. From the Washington Post, quote, Vice President Kamala Harris will unveil a proposed ban on price gouging. Now, Kamala's narrative is that inflation isn't real, grocery stores are just too greedy, charging extra money for no reason. This is ridiculous. If any of you know how grocery store margins work, they are the thinnest margins of any store, any let's just say, market out there. The Democrats are trying to say, well, corporations are greedy and they're just price gouging. We know why prices are going up. When you have more dollars in the system than goods and services, prices go up. Inflation is the most proven way to crush an economy in a country. Government overspending is the reason why you get inflation. And Kamala Harris was the tie-breaking vote on trillions of dollars of unnecessary government overspending that flooded the zone with dollar bills and has raised your grocery prices. So now she's saying we are going to do price controls. This is terrifying. If she were to win, she would then be at war against one of the most firmly settled rules of economics. Literally 1,700 years ago, the Roman Emperor Diocletian tried to stop inflation with an edict on prices, and it failed. During the French Revolution, the revolutionary government passed the law on the maximum of the maximum, capping prices on food. It failed. Instead, what did it lead to? Famine. If you come in with price controls, you are going to have food shortages. Kamala Harris has been saying time and time again, it's time for us to do more from the federal government. The Washington Post comes out and reports that she wants to come in with federal price controls on your groceries. Same reason why rent control doesn't work in New York, San Francisco, and DC. They don't have lower rent. They have the highest rent in the country and constant housing shortfalls. And then a small handful of people get to have apartments way below the market rate. But here's the problem, is that politically this could work. Economics is not the public strong suit. It sounds good. Yeah, price controls. You will enter into the Soviet grocery store quickly if Kamala Harris gets her communist way of promising you price controls on your groceries. The solution is lower energy costs, cut government overspending, and grow the economy. Not take a page from the Soviets.